Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Fun episode ahead of you. We've got a race recap, lots of League of Legends talk, a little bit of Magic at the end that Justin has planned as well. Justin, how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling okay. One change is not Magic talk. With the same individuals, but it's a game called Divinity.
Okay.
But I want to talk about that because it's like it's in the same vein, but we can save that for later. But we don't have any Magic talk for this evening. We weren't able to get any games in this week. But other than that, to answer your question, I'm doing pretty well. How are you feeling, man?
I am happy to be recording, but it has been quite the shitty day.
Quite the shitty day? What happened?
Yeah, well, I'll just lead into my Rose, Thorn, and Seed, because my day has been... I've... Lots of, inconveniences and annoyances have kind of built up and everything. So my main thorn with today was just, the entire day. I got up, I went to Dunkin' Donuts on my way to work, got my coffee. When I go to pick it up, the lid popped off and it dumped all over myself and the ground in the Dunkin' Donuts. They were very friendly. They gave me a new coffee, but I just had to continue on to work with my slacks soaked in coffee. So that was, it sucked, but it dried out. I'll do laundry. Then I get to work and I'm I'm doing my walkthrough of the clubhouse that I'm kind of in charge of ish right now. And in the men's room and the women's room, there were clogged toilets. And I tried to I decided, I'm going to be a good person, not just call maintenance to fix a toilet or whatever. I'll just plunge it. Well, I decided to do that and the toilet decided to shoot shitty water up in the air and get on me a little bit. So that was the second part of my day. Two people's trucks got stolen last night, so I was having to look at video footage. They decided to fill the indoor pool at the clubhouse, so I was just breathing in chlorine all day. Just overall, even at the end of my day, I had to pull down some cobwebs that they had used for decorations for Halloween that were blocking one of our security cameras. I go to pull the one, and I guess they had stapled them into the wood, and it yanks out, the staple shoots down and stabs me right in the thumb. So I got stapled while I was trying to it's just been a rough one, man. It's been...
And stapled while covered in shit? Did you shower?
I hadn't showered. It wasn't a lot. It was little bits of shitty water, but I cleaned myself up as best I could. It didn't get on me, just my clothing, so
Gotcha.
Those are getting burned. But yeah, it's just...
Oh, man.
It was one thing after another. So it's been a rough day. That is my thorn.
That is the kind of work day that deserves to be a thorn. That's fucking shitty, my man.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry.
It was bad. I was
damn.
I just wanted to get out at the end of the day, and I got hung or stuck pulling down the cobwebs that got hung up, so it just topped it all off. But
and then just stabbed in the thumb.
Yeah, so it wasn't that bad. Not the first time I've had a staple in my thumb, which is a weird thing to say. I accidentally stapled my thumb back in middle school at one point. I was a dumb kid. I did a similar thing, and it was fine.
Sure. At least it wasn't the table saw, dude.
Could be much, much worse. But yeah, so that's my thorn. My rose was that the vacation actually went really well. Not actually, it did go really well. I expected it to go well. we had some like minor complications, but those ones were not as bad as like today. Like everything kind of worked out pretty well. But I did have a bunch of like entertaining tidbits that I was keeping notes of, kind of anything interesting or funny I thought that happened on vacation. So, because I wanted to have it here for the podcast, I thought I'd give you a laugh. But started out, we were supposed to go to the airport at 7 a.m. Colleen's dad like shows up at 6:30 when our first alarm was like going off to get up and get just together because we had everything packed already. Mm-hmm. So she like goes out under her back deck to like be like, hey, there's a spot over here. And so her dad just like yelled at her. She's like, I'm double parked, and starts like yelling. So we hurried ourselves down. But got to the airport, like everything in security and all went like smoothly. Like vacation started off pretty good overall. So flight was like good, on time, quick. But when we got into Tampa, we went to the Hertz rental car place at the airport, and they were like, oh, your reservation's like in Tampa, like not here. So we had to like Uber in. We get to that Hertz, they're like, the airport's supposed to give us 40 cars a day, and they didn't give us any today, so we don't have a car for you. And so they're like, we could send you back to the airport, or you could hang out for a bit and see if a car comes in. So we're like, all right, grabbed lunch. The guy called us like while we were eating. It was like, oh, I have a car. And so like that worked out. Like things were just, even though they were inconvenient, like just kind of worked out throughout vacation.
Sure.
So it was pretty solid overall. Had some nice days, nice weather. I think one of the funnier parts, though, we were like right near our Airbnb just getting dinner, and we decided to walk around and like go to like one of the bars. It was in this little like area with just restaurants and bars and all. So we're walking along, and Colleen admittedly has not great eyesight. So she looks across the street and she sees this thing, and she just goes, I don't think that's a real bird. So I look at her and I'm like, you're right. It's not a real bird. It's also not a fake bird. It was a little mini statue of a cow that they just had on the corner of like the street across the street. And it was like kind of dark out, but also she was just like, for some reason she thought it was a bird, but maybe a statue of a bird.
Well, was it the profile of the cow, or was it like straight on?
It was like straight on, but still,
okay.
it was still pretty definitively like not anything like a bird. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
but she wasn't wrong.
It was not a real bird.
I think that's what like made me laugh the most, though. Was I was like, I couldn't even be like, you're wrong, because she wasn't. It was not a real bird. It was just also not a fake bird. So, but vacation, yeah, overall was really, really solid. And I think that kind of leads into my seed and all, because just in terms of like thinking down the line, like it's fun. I really enjoyed like traveling and everything. Like even when we did run into those little hang-ups and everything, we just kind of figured it out and all. So I'm looking forward to more like trips and vacations and stuff like that with Colleen. And like,
nice.
It's also nice to know that we can be together for, that was 4.5, 5 days, like the longest that we've ever been together, like nonstop straight. And like, we didn't want to murder each other. So it was really nice. So
that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's my seed. I feel like some people might get sick of each other after extended period of time together, but
yeah, but if that's the case, then like that's probably not the right person for a long term,
But that's where like that's where that seed like comes in, is like,
right.
Yeah, like we weren't like that, so that's like gives me some nice confidence for down the line and everything, that we won't just like be miserable together, because I've seen that. It's not fun. Seeing couples together that are just like not enjoying being around each other seems mad shitty.
Yeah, and it seems like let me hop on my high horse here real quick. It just seems fucking stupid. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like,
You are correct. It does seem stupid.
it's not like anybody has a gun to your head. Unless they do have a gun to your head, then that's like not that fun. But in most other scenarios, I imagine, you could just say, see ya.
Yeah, it's like people who I don't understand what motivates people to stay in like that shitty spot in a relationship like that you just like don't enjoy being around the other person. I assume it has something to do with like fear of being by yourself, but I think people who are afraid of being on their own or like whatnot probably should be for a bit so that they can be more comfortable with themselves and all. I think that's
Yeah,
a
no, I
healthy
definitely
thing.
agree with that. Yeah,
Like,
but there's this weird thing of like, well, so there's probably a good number of variables that go into like why that happens. But overall, is there something about our culture that promotes not breaking up? Like, why is that the case?
I think
Like,
it's kind of looked down upon to be not looked down upon, but it's not like um looked upon like people look very highly at like being in a relationship and all. Like they're like this is like the goal. This is what you're supposed to
right,
do. If you're single, like you have your like grandma's cousin being like, "Oh, when are you gonna get married? And when are you gonna find so?"
right,
Like you have, like there's all those memes and jokes that are like probably legitimate in a lot of people's lives where they're like, "Oh,
sure,
when I go home for the holidays, I'm gonna have to hear about like how I'm single and how I'm like blah 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 blah," and like have all these people asking me if I'm dating any. Like, there's so much pressure I feel like on people. It's not like intense pressure, but just kind of like societal pressure, I think, for people to find that other person. Whether that means like you're actually in a good spot to find a person or not. I think that has to be part of it.
but how do you know then? Like who you like with the kind of person that you want to be with if you don't like have the freedom of mind to just like, well, this isn't fucking working, I'm gonna go that way, and then just like, try on a new relationship, a new person. Like, does it come from the like, what would you say, like not like Christian values, but the like marriage values, where if divorce is looked down upon, then is just like even breaking up in relationships? Like, is that where that stems from?
I don't think so necessarily. I think it's more like the what's the saying? The the thing you know, or like the something like the evil you know is better than the one you don't, or something like that. Do you know
That
what saying I'm talking about?
Yeah, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah,
think
for
it's
sure.
like maybe a little bit of that where people are like, oh, like I'm at least I know what I'm getting with this person in this relationship. Like if I go out and try and find someone new, maybe that person I'm gonna get along with them like even less than I get along with like this person now.
That does make sense to me. And then so then there's like not like a laziness, but
It's
almost
like,
like a
yeah,
complacency
that's the word I was
slash
thinking.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah, but it's definitely like weird from an outside perspective that people, because like I was like, when I was single and started looking and everything, I was like, I didn't want to settle for anything less than like previous relationship. And so that didn't mean that like I was um like snubbing my nose at like different things, but I was just like, I know like what made me feel good in a past relationship. Like, I'm not going to accept someone who doesn't like make me feel good. And so I was fine being single for a while until I found the right person or like whatnot to that made me feel those same kind of like happiness and enjoyment, like enjoying being around each other and things like that. So I was
Right.
like, I feel like not a lot of people are as comfortable with just being single. Like, again, granted, I'll admit there were times that sucked about it. That I was like very like miserable that about being single. But at the same time, I would rather do that than just like jump at anything. It's like a job almost. Like, you don't want to take like a shitty job because they like offered it to you. Like, if you don't want that job, then like look for a job that you think you're gonna enjoy or be good at or whatnot. Like,
Yeah, I think that's a quality comparison. That makes sense to me.
so yeah, but it was yeah, overall just a nice vacation. I enjoyed it a lot, and so it was it makes up for the shitty day that I had today.
Nice.
Pun intended.
Yeah, quite shitty actually. That's
So
so gross, dude. That's like my nightmare every time I would do that.
yeah, it was not great. I really like was I was like, and they ended up having to snake the entire like drain line out to like the outside of the building, so it wasn't anything that I could have even fixed just with a plunger anyway, which made it feel a little bit worse that I decided to be so cavalier about just being like, yeah, I'll fix it because I don't want to be a burden to these maintenance people. And then I had to call them anyway.
Right.
Be like, fix this, please.
Plus a gross shirt, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Damn, dude.
but Justin, how are you? How was your week? Are you? I feel like you probably had a bad start, and then it came up because last Friday, your girl Amaranth got banned on Twitch. But
Wait, she got banned on Twitch? I didn't know that.
don't worry, it only lasted 3 days, and
Oh.
then she was back at her typical antics. So,
Well,
so
that's
that's
good.
why I was saying it probably started off poorly. You were probably pretty bummed that she was no longer doing ASMR streams, and then unbanned. So life is good, right?
Life is okay. Amaranth withstanding, yeah, it's
Oh,
okay.
good.
Although, did we talk about this last week? The fucking microphones that they have.
I don't think so.
Oh my god! All right, so I had seen a video of, it was just a short clip of your girl Amaranth, dude, sucking. I mean, like slurping down on this
Wait,
contraption.
are they the ones that look like ears?
Yes,
I
they are,
have
and it's
seen
got,
that.
yeah, and it's got one on each side, and it's got the design of the ear. And so the idea is that where you're inputting on the shape of the ear is where the individual would hear it in their headphones. If their
Ugh.
headphones have the like
The
surround whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there she was just slurping on an earlobe, a plastic earlobe, whatever about that. That's the audio stimulation doesn't do anything for me. What I wanted to know was how much one of those fucking microphones cost.
Oh,
and
shit.
It is a pretty penny, my guy. And then, and here's the clinker. I was privy then to information where it is quite tough to rent those in a certain city where a lot of that is going down, because there are many individuals that want to be sucking on some ear mics.
So there's too many people that are trying to do ear ASMR that they you can't even find the microphones.
Yes.
Oh, well, I would think that has to be at least like an $800 microphone.
A little higher, my guy.
Little higher or a lot higher?
The ones that I saw were like $17.99.
Oh my god! I wasn't thinking it would be that much because I was thinking a good microphone costs probably like $300 or so for like this kind of setup, like us podcasting. I mean, I know there's more expensive microphones,
fancy shit, brother.
But I was not thinking that just like everything else would jack the price up that much.
Dude, I know. And I may have been looking at like a high end one, like that may have just been the first result that popped up. But yeah, it was like 1, 2, 3 of like very large numbers.
I don't even want that to be in my search history. I was about to search that. I'm like, I'm gonna just leave that one alone.
Dude, that's what the incognito windows are for, brother.
Fair. But the reason that I brought that up, it was not because I like follow her at all. I follow this.
Don't fucking out me like that,
no.
Dude. Like, what do you think? What do you think? I'm like watching Amaranth streams on the weekend?
No, it was just funny because you had brought her up the other week about the ASMR thing. God, that's why I brought it up. Okay, so no, I was trying to be. It was trying to be a callback, but. It popped up
I just felt fucking persecuted.
Oh no, it popped up on my feed because this esports like news guy who talks about like all the different video games and like stuff happening in them and everything from Call of Duty to League of Legends or whatever, also talks about Twitch streaming a bunch. And so he had tweeted out that this like picture of there's a Twitter handle called Streamer Bans. And they just like tweet anytime like a streamer or like a high profile streamer gets banned. So
gotcha.
he tweeted out a picture of that, and I was like, oh shit, Justin and I just mentioned her on the podcast the other day because we talked about ASMR.
We're filthy, man. We're gross individuals for even knowing her name. She who shall not be named.
Yeah, honestly, she's up there, but like. At the same time, we've both been around the Twitch streaming community and watching streams and stuff like that for like 8, 9 years at this point. So like,
or at least knowing it exists. Sure.
Yeah,
I try not to be.
No, I mean, I watched a lot of like League of Legends streams back in the day. I haven't ever watched like the only streams I ever watch are video game streamers trying to actually get decent at games. So, like, I know that these other stream categories exist. Like, the live music ones are kind of interesting if you go to the Twitch.
All right, Aaron. Just stop beating around the bush. Name your 3 top favorite porn stars. Quit beating around the bush.
No, I'm just saying, like, you can't be around, like, Twitch and all that long and just the like, online video game community for a while without hearing some of these names, because a lot of them like have been variety game streamers and stuff like that till they were like, oh shit, Twitch isn't gonna ban me for showing my tiggle bitties. Like, might as well just do it and make shit tons of money, which doesn't make sense because porn is free, my friend. There's lots of it out there.
It can be, unless you're the saintly individual that pays for their Brazzers account. Dude, like God literally, bless. Like there are people supporting that industry. Like it's not,
Matt. Hey, I respect it. I guess
Big whales, dude. Big whales are just floating the jerk-off habits of
For
every
a while,
11-year-old on the
though,
planet.
I thought it was mostly just like advertisements.
I mean,
I feel like that's got to be a lot of the revenue.
it probably is a good amount of the revenue, but I mean, dude, think of, I don't know, dude. There's got to be so much fucking being filmed.
Fair.
How do you put ads on all of it?
You just advertise on the websites. Like you just pay Pornhub and all those other ones to be like, hey, like when you throw up a video of this stepson and stepmom, just hit them with an Amazon ad, baby.
Dude, we should be the #1 podcast on Pornhub. That's where we should post. Just do the same exact podcast just with our shirts off.
Just every time we do the podcast, we are like, you can find us on YouTube, anywhere you find podcasts, Google, Spotify, Anchor, Pornhub.
Oh man, hubcasts.com.
Oh my god.
Shit.
I mean,
you can spank and learn.
That just makes me think of like, I remember it used to be a meme for like that I'd occasionally see on the League of Legends subreddit where if someone would like, if a team would win in like a ridiculous amount of time, like 18-minute game in professional League of Legends or something stupid like that, someone would just like post it on Pornhub, like the video of the game, and people would be like, it's gonna be taken down for indecent content. Like, shit like that. It's like, that's what that made me think of. Just
that's pretty funny.
So
damn.
But yeah, since I sidetracked us super hard, I guess I'll reel us back into your rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Well, my thorn was this weekend. Amaranth took a 3-day ban, so I didn't have anybody to watch. And then my rose, tomorrow I'm going to see the new James Bond movie with my dad.
Ooh, nice.
I heard from Will Buxton that it was quite entertaining.
I think he has to say that since Aston Martin is advertising during.
Yeah, he's probably paid to say that. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to going and hanging out with my dad tomorrow.
Nice.
Part of me, like, movies are the tradition, and James Bond will at least be, I think, a fun time. But I think overall, I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe try and do something else, because I feel like I only see him once every whatever, and then we just like go sit in a room where we don't get to say anything to each other, and then just like go home. So I think as I'm like getting older, I'd like to maybe like get to know him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing James Bond. I'm looking forward to hanging out with him. But yeah.
Go grab like a bite to eat afterwards or something like that.
Well, that's what we usually do. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a pretty good time. And then my seed for the week is Sarah's been going to therapy recently, and she's been feeling pretty good about that. It's been going really well and just creating a lot of positive vibes overall. Nice. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her and that, because it's big good stuff, I would say. So yeah, just real quick, that was my rose, thorn, and seed. I feel like we have a big episode ahead of us. We got to cover the Turkish Grand Prix. We got groups, play-ins for Worlds. We got a lot of stuff going on, Aaron. Talk to me. Let's get into the Turkish Grand Prix here.
Well, definitely started off a little interesting. The qualies, we were looking at potentially having some rain and whatnot. Everything went pretty smoothly, I would say. Like, we had some really, really solid lap times, things like that. Lewis ended up taking first in qualies, but with his grid penalty, for the starting grid. He took the 10 place grid penalty, ended up there down in 11th to start. But man, he was just storming through the pack pretty quickly. There were only a couple people that seemed to be able to hold him up for a bit. So that was
most importantly of which was Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
That was some pretty exciting racing.
See, that's what, and that is a point that I wanted to bring up. That was like the kind of racing that I would love to see between like him and Max, to see them be able to like have that kind of quality of racing where they're both giving each other enough space, but they're still racing each other extremely hard. Like no one's giving up an inch, but also they're not putting anyone into a dangerous situation. And with like Sergio, like Lewis gave him way more room than Lewis had been giving Max anytime they were like side by side. He let Checo have the space, and Checo was able to hold the position and defend really well, come back after he'd gotten past briefly and everything. Like it was a really, really solid fight. But they were nowhere close to even touching, having a collision, having any sort of incident. And I was like, wow, it's amazing. Like I honestly didn't know that they could do that like that based on how previous incidents have been with Max and Lewis. I expected something at least somewhat similar with Checo, but
well, it wasn't Max, and Sergio's not fighting him for the championship, so he didn't have to fucking run him off the road, ram him.
But he did hold him off and ended up holding him down in that position for a while. And then I guess, were there any like other standout? I did also want to give props to Yuki, because he really like did a solid job as well of holding off Lewis for a bit with early on in the race. It was a little bit of just like a glimpse into, I feel like, Yuki's potential. Again, I think we've gotten a number of different like glimpses into how good of a driver he could be, and seeing that with him so like looking so strong at the start of the race, kind of holding Lewis behind him, I was really impressed. So
yeah, and I have a feeling that he would have been able to hold him off a little longer, maybe for a more consistent length of time, if he just had a better car under him. I don't think he was, not like beaten on skill. It just seemed like Lewis just had way more pace than him, and it was just a matter of time before he was going to get by. But I think that was a matter of Lewis being so comfortable in the wet, and just that Mercedes, like you were alluding to, just being like just so quick on the day. But yeah, those were the two big ones that I think gave Red Bull the big opportunity to take the 2-3 on the afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely a little bummed out for Fernando Alonso though too at the start there. I mean, we had a hot start to that race. We had Fernando getting spun out. We had, I think someone else did as well at the start. I think, well, Schumacher got hit by Alonso later on in like the first or second lap.
Yeah,
it was a little messy.
Stop on Mick. He had the Q2 berth on Saturday.
Yeah, P14.
Yeah, was not quickly fell back in the race during like after the start and all that. But yeah, good qualifying for him on Saturday. But yeah, like you were saying, after the incident, Alonso tapped him, and that wasn't fun. But what was interesting was when Alonso spun right at the start, it was just like a very clean whoop whoop, and then he was like right back on the track. It looked pretty funny.
I was impressed that he was able to like get control of it again and just like all right, down the road we go. Like
yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but interesting with the rainy weather and everything. I I didn't realize that when you have rainy weather that people don't have to necessarily pit. That was like an interesting thing that they like the rules are out the window with having to use two different sets of tires if it's rainy. So like you could just ride the intermediates until they become slicks basically and just get going. So I was just gonna say it's just really interesting, kind of seeing that and seeing like the different drivers and teams and like what their thoughts were on like tire strategy with that.
Yeah, like we saw Seb at the end of the race. I think it was lap like 39 maybe.
I think 38, 39, yeah.
Where he went into the pits, tried the slicks, which I thought was interesting. Did not work, so he just went right back onto the inters. But yeah, there's something because I would imagine, depending on the track and if it's raining, like if you're on full wets, those likely, because if it's raining, it's colder out, so the degradation wouldn't be as high. So you have to figure like on the inters or the wets, like the tread on them probably can just go for so much longer. Even though you don't have the pace, they can probably go for just lap after lap after lap.
Well, and you have the graining and all, like they were talking about during the race. You have like a stage where they do start to grain pretty bad, but then once you're through that, like the pace kind of falls back to normal. But yeah, I think it's because it's essentially like they're basically slicks that just have additional tread put on them with like grooved patterns and all that's supposed to shed the water. So like it really is basically a slick at once you wear down all that rubber. So
sure, yeah. The concern is just that you end up if you run it too long, you don't want to get like a puncture or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the rule. It was the rain rule that really shook up the strategy like towards the later stages of the race. I have to be honest, for a lot of it was pretty cut and dry. We were really just watching just Lewis just like storm up through. There were a couple of pits here and there, but overall it was pretty straightforward until I believe it was the Ferraris that pitted first.
Whereabouts, or just
like
for like
late,
the second set of inters, or
the second set of inters, because a lot of people on the radio were trying to push them until the end, especially Charles Leclerc at the front battling Valtteri.
Yeah, so it was actually. It was kind of a mixture. We had a ton of pit stops in like a three lap span. So it was we had Ricardo who did his really early pit to switch sets of inters to try and make up. So he pitted lap 21. Alonso pitted lap 30. Then we had Lando and Latifi at 34. Yuki and Russell at 35. Verstappen, Sainz, Vettel and Mazepin at 36. Bottas, Checo, Raikkonen, Vettel at 37. Like it was really a bunch there, and then after lap 40 it just stopped. And Leclerc and Hamilton were both the two that kind of hung out there for a while. And then Leclerc decided to pit to go in, since he was expected to lose track position if he just stayed out on the one set of inters. And then which ended up being, I think, a good decision for him, because then he didn't lose too much ground behind him once he pretty much just let Valtteri go and then just pitted immediately after and kept it moving. So I like that strategy from Ferrari. But yeah, thank you for laying all that out, because I thought it was Ferrari that brought it in first. They were with like the decisions at the end with him and Lewis that were like the kind of the main focus of everything.
Right, that didn't like spur all the all the pit stops.
I would say that Max's was like Max was honestly the first of the people who were like in competition for the top of the grid. Like Lando was a little ways back. Latifi, Sonoda, Russell weren't really in it. So Max like jumping. Carlos Sainz was having a phenomenal day too. So him pitting, like, he put himself in a good spot. But honestly, I guess what are your thoughts on Leclerc and Hamilton pulling it into the pits? Like you said, Leclerc, you thought it was a pretty decent choice. It was just, I don't know. At that point, I feel like losing 24 seconds when you've only got, like, I don't know, what is that, 11 laps left in the race? I was looking at it, I'm like, do you really think you're going to be over a second slower than, like, almost 2 seconds slower than the person coming up behind you in that last stretch of the race? That seems like a lot slower.
I guess. Well, and this may be the benefit of having lap times and sectors up while you're watching the race, because you do get the information that the pit wall's seeing that can inform pace.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't see the... So you had X time on the old tires, and now on your second lap of the new tires after they've been warmed up, now you're at this. Like, that's the time that they were really focusing on. So I have to believe that when, let's say Mercedes pit wall says to Lewis, like, hey, a new set of inters is the way to go, that's not just experiential data. That's the answer that they're arriving at from looking at data gathered from across all of the teams. Yeah. Right? They see the data of all of the drivers. They know who've pitted, who's out on a new set of inners, who's still out on old inners. So I guess what I'm getting at is commenting on the when and what and how. I often will just defer to the pit wall and what they perceive as like the overarching narrative of the race, because they have access to way more information and data than we do as the fans. So I say that to kind of set up my just like general view on the thing. But during the race, when we were watching it, the sentiment was, Lewis, you probably should have pitted when they said to originally.
Yeah, either do it when they said,
or he wasn't going quickly.
Yeah, either do it when they said, or like don't at all. And like you could see his frustration after the race, where he's like, I just shouldn't have listened. I should have listened to my gut. He's like, but we're a team though, so. Like, it was so begrudging.
He did listen to his gut though, and it was just
for a while. But he said, like, he was in his post race interview, he was like, I should have just ignored it and just not ever come in. Like, basically is what he said. But then he was like, but it's a team decision, so like he was like, I knew better, but I listened to them, so like really it's a team decision, like.
Right.
And it was very like throwing shade at the pit wall and his team. Like, it was like, oh, I knew what I was doing, but they said I should do that, so I was like, well, gotta go with the team.
I have a feeling he was gonna lose. I have a feeling the outcome of the race for him would have been the same either way.
I think most likely, but without the risk of a puncture or something like that, like you said. Like that's my biggest concern. When you're running a set of tires to, like, through 90% of the race, like, that is a concern. Like, these tires are not typically made to last that many. Only a single person did make that run the entire way, and it was Ocon. And he ended up finishing all the way up in a solid P10, racking up the
one point
points
on the day, yeah.
I mean, like it worked out for them, and he had nothing to lose. He started P12. He just kind of like hung in there and everything.
Right.
But it he wasn't setting any land speed records there at the end. Like,
No, but that's the thing. If you're not driving a progressive system throughout the race, you're not nuking your tires, right? That's why it's such a problem for Valtteri and Lewis and Leclerc and the guys at the front, because they're like pushing, they're like really like racing other guys.
Yeah.
But it seems like if you're just in the middle of the pack, you've got, you know, a guy ahead of you and a guy behind you, it doesn't seem like you go through those tires as fast. So that makes big sense to me.
yeah, no, I think that it worked out for him. I do agree with. I think Mercedes made the right call. I think it was like interesting seeing how like crotchety, I guess, Lewis was after the fact. Because really, I mean, he was not far up on, really too far up on like Sergio, or well, he wasn't up on Sergio until Sergio pitted, but Sergio and Leclerc both definitely would have caught him, I think, and it would just have been whether or not he could keep the M like behind him with like rough tires. I mean,
It would have
honestly,
given us a good. Sorry.
I was
cut
gonna
you
say,
off.
like, if Gasly hadn't ended up with his 5-second penalty, he would have been ahead of Lewis too. So, like, he ended up only being back 3 seconds off of Lewis. So, yeah, I think Lewis kind of caught a break just in that fact as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like you have all the data when you're in the car. So like from his perspective, he's always going to drive as though he can win, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And he's going on feel, and he's going on, but like, I don't know. It just seems like not a great look to come out and be like, without looking at that data with your team and everything. Like in his post race interview and everything, there wasn't a lot of like. There was a lot more like I just went with their decision. I should have trusted my gut. I think that would have worked out better, instead of being like, yeah, like I think the team had a reason for the call. I'm going to have to look over the data with them because I felt like this would be better, but they had the data saying that I needed to come in, so like that's what I did. Like there's a way that you can put that like doesn't reflect like it was I think his frustration with the battle for the championship and all, and losing out to Max to go down more points. It seemed like that was like kind of the forefront of his thoughts when he was going through that interview. It was a very like like hot off the presses. Like he was annoyed and was just like kind of let that interview just let it rip. So
yeah, and I think after some explanation, I'd have to agree with you that yeah, maybe that isn't the best look, because we had already heard him frustrated in the car, and then he's just gonna be kind of like, oh well, yeah, blame them, and they made the call, blah blah. So yeah, I might agree. Although you can understand the frustration from his end, you know.
No, definitely. I mean, it's a difficult thing, but you can still be frustrated and be like, yeah, I didn't want to make the call, but they felt like they had the data to back it up. I don't know how it would have worked out if I had stayed out there. I went with what the team thought was the best call, and just kind of leave it at that.
Sure.
Like, well, they told me I should pit, and I didn't. My gut said no, but I just ignored my gut and listened to them. So here we are.
Yeah, it's a little like passive aggressive.
A little bit, and I mean. It is that competitive nature and everything coming out and all. It's just kind of, it's kind of weird to see sometimes, because I I feel like I've seen so many Lewis interviews, and they're usually relatively like polished and kind of like cliche, like just hitting the buzzwords, like, oh yeah, like the team really had a good car going this weekend, and I got to give thanks to the team on the wall and everyone back at the factory. They really put us in a good car and felt good all weekend, and just like all those little like buzzword lines that are like don't mean anything but kind of do. And it was like I feel like I've seen him kind of just coast through so many interviews, seeing him have some genuine emotion and like it come out kind of negatively towards the team. I was like, oh, that's like it just caught my attention. So
Right. It was markedly different than what he's done before. Yeah.
And other drivers, like, you see similar things. Like Alonso wasn't really thrilled. He was kind of like, yeah, like I got hit at the beginning and that fucked my whole race. Like he was like kind of pissed about it too. So it's not like Lewis is the only driver that's like that. It was just a different look than I feel like I've typically seen from.
Well, and he's the highest scrutinized driver. You know, the lens comes onto him harder than anybody.
I mean, fucking Carlos Sainz went from, what did he start? He started P15 and raced his way all the way up to driver of the day and P8, making up 7 spots and everything. And like, I think I saw him on screen like twice during the race. It was like they were barely shut. They would be like up in it, like they're sitting there watching like the front of the grid with like Leclerc and Verstappen and Bottas, and they're like, oh, it looks like based on the driver positions changing on the side of our screen that Carlos Sainz has passed another person. They're like, he's passing like one guy a lap, and then they just don't show any of the passes.
Yeah, they only showed him picture in picture.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's where the excitement is.
Nah, they were too worried about the fucking Valtteri up front and whatever was going on with them.
Yeah. I do have to. I'm happy for Valtteri that he looked like he had some of his old self back this weekend. He looked really good. So I was pretty impressed with his performance.
Yeah, I agree. He had some wings this weekend, that's for sure. So I was happy to see him on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, props to him. He raced a good race, front of the grid, held on to it. I think they said that the number of laps he led during the race was more than the laps he had led in all the other races this season combined, or something like that.
Oh wow, Jesus!
Yeah,
so that means when Valtteri wins, he's like snatching it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like I think we had seen in previous the past couple seasons, honestly, where we're like, oh, like the Mercedes, like when Valtteri beats Lewis, like the Mercedes cars are just so good that he just kind of coasts through and like holds on to it the whole time. It's just I'm really intrigued to see how he does at Alfa Romeo next year, because he drives so well from the front of the grid. When he's in clean air and just like able to cruise and like doesn't have to push his tires too hard or like wear on them too bad, he's up there being like one of the best drivers in the world. Like, but when he has to fight through the pack and fight through like from the back or the middle of the grid, he struggles so hard. So I'm really curious to see in a midfield car, like, and I honestly I haven't seen many of his races or much of his like highlights from when he was with Williams back in the day or like before he was on Mercedes, but it's intriguing to me. I kind of wonder how he is gonna do driving a midfield car, like how he's gonna be driving in the middle of the pack.
Well, we've seen Kimi and Antonio Giovinazzi doing well on qualifying day. So I have a feeling that if you put like an order of like a driver with a skill better than them, um, maybe the having to drive from the middle of the pack won't be that big of an issue. He'll
Yeah.
just be able to qualify really well and
Stick it in
start at
like
like P
P7,
five or
P8.
six.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Hmm.
It's going to be
And
interesting.
maybe
I think
go
with
ahead.
only a few races left in the season, even though like there is a lot
Six.
of like battles still to be fought in terms of the championship, constructors and drivers. I'm slowly starting to like mentally shift towards this coming year with all the roster changes and everything. And
Yeah, it's weird. There's like a push towards the next year, like way before the current one's over.
yeah, I think it's part of just the nature of F1, especially with how they sign contracts like halfway through the season that they're currently in and everything. Like most other sports, you have to wait till the season's ended and then
Yeah.
people like their contracts expire and they're like, okay, season's over. Like now you're a free agent who can go and be picked up by someone before the start of the next season. Like I don't know of any other sport that has like free agency partway through the current season. Or like I mean with last year, we had people making that decision before the actual season started because COVID postponed it. Like
Hmm.
Daniel Ricciardo had already said he was going to McLaren, uh, and Carlos Sainz had already declared that he was going to Ferrari
Hmm.
like before that season officially had its first race.
Right.
So it's such a unique sport that you can like start gearing up towards the next season while like everyone's still battling it out.
And it's one that may have been introduced, after they realize maybe onboarding in F1 takes a lot longer than any other sport. So maybe even while Daniel was racing with the other team, there were days that he would be at the new team doing this paperwork and this thing, doing that exercise.
Kind of
Like
meeting
I'm
the team and everything.
Right, like I imagine the goings on behind the scenes have to be intense for all parties involved. So it's likely a matter of scheduling. Whereas somebody like in basketball, like you can just pick up a basketball, start running the plays, but when you have to get a seat fit, it's a new car every year. The engineers are changing so quickly. I imagine it's this like it's got to be this whole fucking production, packets on packets, PowerPoints, you know.
Yeah, I feel like the only comparison I kind of have, and it's not even a very like apt one, is people declaring for their like what college they're going to for college athletics, like while they're still in high
Yeah.
school, being like, I'm committing myself to fucking USC or Alabama or whatever. But like you're not doing that still in the middle of your own season.
No.
Really. Or like even people in college who are like declaring that they're gonna go to the NFL, like pretty typically wait until their like season is over before they do that. Like people aren't
Right.
really it's a definitely a unique sport, and I can imagine it probably does have to go with the fact that they're driving multi-million-dollar pieces of machinery that have so many like intricacies and everything. But yeah, that was it's kind of like it was weird to me that I was thinking about starting to think about that. Like we got 6 races left. We've still got a lot of F1 going on. We've got the U.S. Grand Prix ahead of us. That's the next race. So
And that's not this weekend, that's the following weekend, right?
correct, it is the following.
Gotcha. It's not yeah, okay, cool.
So
Um
down in
but yeah, 6 races
Austin.
left. There's, I think for me, the excitement towards next year is the cars. I'm very excited to see the new cars on track.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that I'm really intrigued by with that is honestly I'm curious to see if there's any shakeups in like what teams are performing the best, because like I feel like each kind of era of F1 has been relatively dominated by certain constructors and all. We had the Red Bull era, we had the McLaren era, we've now had the Mercedes era. We've had Ferrari at a number of different points in time. There seems to be a lot of shaking up of like who is top dog when they go through these big rule changes, and everything. So yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, will any of these midfield teams, will the Alpine Renault, like, just get it right and all of a sudden they're, like, fighting at the top? Or will Mercedes and Red Bull and Ferrari still kind of just hold it down? Maybe McLaren slides up, like, it's interesting with the new cars because you just don't know what to expect.
Well, what I'm expecting is the cost cap equalizing some of these teams, where the big teams used to just be able to spend more money than the other teams, and that would show on track. But now, hopefully, with the changes to the finances, we see these middle of the tier teams. Hopefully able to shake, like you were saying, shake the grid up in meaningful ways based on the fact that hopefully the car that they'll be bringing is going to be within the same class at least of the other competitors on the grid, and there's not 2 million more in the Mercedes engine than everybody else, of like R&D hours and this and that. So I think that's going to be an important factor to note going into next year. But yeah, this is shaping up to be quite the season. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Leading up to next.
definitely. It's like, it's interesting because I last night to go to bed I decided to watch an old race, and I watched the Australian Grand Prix from 2012.
Nice.
Went back, and there it just seemed so much more competitive. Like through the early laps, there was just like people just on top of each other and like going back and forth, people like making passes, moving through, and everything. And it was like, I don't know if it was just the fact that I was like watching a race that was like from a different kind of time period, a decade ago, that like the racing is pretty different and all. And even though a lot of the drivers that we know were there, Hulkenberg, Grosjean, Schumacher, Massa, Senna, Bruno Senna, not Ayrton, just like Checo, Kimi, Daniel Ricciardo, like all these guys that we know and have seen race were like in it. But like the driving just seemed so different. It was pretty interesting to kind of watch and have a comparison. So
Yeah, and I imagine you're going to see that if you go back even more decades. I imagine there may be, periods of less overtaking and more overtaking, depending on, what the FIA deemed most entertaining and safe in that year. Because I imagine there's this push and pull between like safety and speed, right? To where like, well, we have the capability to go faster, but we don't have the safety features yet, so we got to keep it here. Next year we can add this in. That gets it's all got to be super tricky.
yeah,
but
well,
yeah,
safety, speed, and probably technology too. Like technology is a huge part of that, and being able
well,
to
that
like,
kind of goes into all
with
of
the
it, yeah.
safety, just the progression in those different areas, or I guess not technology, more I'm thinking more like innovation from teams, that things like in recent, I'm curious if there were things back in the day like the DOS system that Mercedes had for their dual axis steering. I'm sure there were other things back in the day that teams pulled out that were like wonky kind of weird things.
Well, it's the things that the rules didn't cover yet. It was the loopholes.
Yeah.
You know, where I'm sure there was a time when maybe front wings were made like a certain way, and then one year, you know, Ferrari was just like, there's nothing in the rules about the size. Everybody just like makes it like this that's just because how they do it. And then Ferrari comes one year with this massive fucking wing, and they just have all the downforce, and it's like, and now like the whole sport shifts because of that, like that thing, right? And they have to adapt. Do we change the rules? Is that funner? Do we want everybody to have that wing? And then some teams say no, other teams say yeah. Like, I imagine it's just that process over and over of somebody like breaking the rules or bending them,
and then they're like, okay, we have
the
to
whole
decide
industry
now.
Shifting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious if the DRS was originally something that a team employed, that they were like, oh, on the straightaways, like around the turns, having the wing closed like really gives us the aerodynamics to be able to like turn more precisely, yada yada yada. But like in the straightaways, if we open that up, like we're getting extra speed and everything. And then F1 was like, oh yeah, like every car should have that.
Right. It's like, oh man, I was trying to think of a really good example of like it's not the same afterwards. Like
9/11. Airports after 9/11.
Well, like that wasn't because of a bent rule.
Yeah. No. That was, sorry. I was just thinking like things that before like a thing happened,
right.
Very different.
No, that's a great example. Just not what I had in mind. I guess you could say somebody bent the rules of the metal detector, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
but
yeah, I did have to take. Did I say that when I flew up to New Hampshire to help my buddy move back down here, they didn't make me take off my shoes, which I thought was weird.
Nope.
Yeah, they didn't have to make me take off my shoes. I did have to take them off to go to Florida, but yeah. I don't know why
that would be. That is weird.
Yeah, they were just like, I don't know. It was an early flight. I felt like they were just like, fuck it, just go through the metal detector. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other sports that or like things where someone bent the rules and then all of a sudden they're like, nah, we got to make a rule on that.
I'm sure they're all over the place. We just don't.
Probably.
Yeah, don't know about them.
Yeah. But
yeah,
6 races left in the F1 calendar for this year. We've got a hotly contested a championship
I feel like
fight.
You have to point your mouth straight at your microphone.
Okay, so I need to just not be turning my head side to side at all.
Yeah, you can't lean back at all.
Okay, I just have to stay locked in. I don't have I don't have any armrests to lock myself in.
Damn, you gotta bolt your shoes to the floor.
It's tough. I get antsy.
No, I hear you.
But yeah, we've got six races left. For the drivers, I mean, Max now has a 6-point lead on Lewis, so he can only give up 1 point per race to Lewis to end up in a nice little tie there at the end. Checo and Lando still in a tightly contested fight for 4th and 5th, and Sainz a whole half point up on Leclerc.
Half a point, man. That's going to be the difference.
A whole half point, as I put it.
Jeez.
But yeah, constructors, Mercedes is up 36 on Red Bull. McLaren's up 7.5 on Ferrari. So even in that, it's pretty tight there as well. So Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a weekend where Red Bull really comes out ahead of Mercedes, maybe we'll see that shift. But I have a feeling if Max's car holds up, I have a feeling we'll see Max win the drivers, and it'll probably be Mercedes winning the constructors by a slim margin.
Yeah. Well, because even with and I looked at it because I was kind of curious about how that works out, but with Valtteri going P1 with the fastest lap, Lewis going P5, they still gained 4 points in the constructors over Red Bull going 2-3.
Right.
Like the point differentials, like even with Red Bull being like right there, second and third place double podium, they still lost out overall.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem like that is kind of the direction things are going.
But we can continue sucking down that hopium like all of the fucking casters at Worlds.
Dude, it's bad, and I'm starting to get slightly I feel like I'm a little annoyed with the casters for throwing out those little like oh well, I really like the what ifs for the Western teams for EU and NA suck at Worlds this year. I was really excited for NA, and I thought the teams that we were sending were gonna be like pretty solid or have potential to do decently, and we're sitting at a 2-7 record right now. So it's been pretty fucking rough. And listening to the casters, like, I don't know, being like, oh, like hopium and copium and like just all the if this NA team that's down a 7K gold lead at 22 minutes just does this one thing, then like maybe they can reel it back. And it's like, no, like they need a lot of things to go in their favor. Or like Freak today with the Cloud9 game, he's like, oh well, I'm just looking at the kill score. Cloud9's up in kills, even though they were down in like turrets, dragons, like gold, fucking.
Well, that he was totally trolling.
He
He
was
was definitely fucking around.
He was, but like it's been other casters have non-ironically been like doing those things. I'm like, I get it. You guys are rooting for the region that you cast. But also, come on, guys. You gotta be realistic.
Right.
Don't bullshit me.
Right.
Like, I can see the graphics on the screen. I can see that Detonation Focus Me is 12,000 gold down at 18 minutes. And although I really love Japan and sushi, I know that they're not making this comeback. Like,
which is frustrating, but I think that's A, like the meta, and B, just like the champions that are being picked. Like it's going to be impossible to like outscale some of the damage that these teams are bringing. The games are so fast; they're like 20 to 25 minutes.
yeah,
It's just like it's a brutal tournament this year.
super snowbally, like insanely hard.
Yeah.
I was, and this is something that came up between last episode and this, like, I did feel for Fnatic, the fact that Upset's not able to play and everything. I feel like a lot of the casters, like, are trying to avoid that being, like, a topic of conversation because they want to be fair to Bean, and they want to be, like, not, I don't know, not, like, talking down on the team just because they're like the team is legitimately handicapped. Like, no offense to Bean, but this is his first time playing on the Fnatic like LCS roster or LEC roster as a starter. And
right, and Upset was like genuinely good. I don't think he was
good.
like
he's probably I mean, I would think he's probably in the top 25 players at the World Championships, which is not like outrageously high, but he's like a very, very solid 80 carry. He's probably in, I would have thought in the top like 780 carries at the tournament out of 16 teams or so. Like he's in the top half in my opinion. So that's a huge loss. And I get that they don't want like Bean's career to be like decided by he played like shit at Worlds, but like it's a legitimate detriment to the team that Upset's not there. The guy that they like have the team cohesion with, let alone like just the better bot laner in general. So I thought that was like interesting just from the commentary that like I don't want them to like harp on it, but it's fair to mention when like Fnatic's bot lane gets dumpstered that they're like playing with someone who isn't their starter. Yeah, let alone a starter for any other team.
It's similar to the Sven Skaren story from last year, 2 years ago, was it? Where he wasn't able to play on... Wasn't that when he was playing for Team Liquid?
Possibly.
There were whatever. There were visa issues for I believe a North American jungler, and that just like that totally fucked them.
Yeah,
it totally fucks you.
Well, and like because I think that some people are like would compare it to PSG Talent. They had Doggo on their team at MSI, not because Doggo is their teammate, but because he was like able to get a visa to like go and help them out. Like he's not on their team. He just went with them to MSI just because they needed someone. Like so that was a weird thing where like Doggo goes to like MSI, but he was a starting player on whatever piece is that PCS? Yeah, on a PCS team with so like it's not the same as like someone's substitute whatever coming in and playing.
Right.
So I felt like they were trying to make some comparisons to that. I'm like, it's not really the same.
No, and it's just big unfortunates for Fnatic. I think they had some promise to at least win some games in the groups. But yeah, with that coming down the pipeline, maybe they'll win one in the second round robin. But yeah, I don't have high hopes there. So yeah, that was big unfortunate for Fnatic.
Yeah. It was pretty rough, but I guess like just in general we've gone through the first half of the group stages. We've got some 3-0 teams, we've got some 0-3 teams. I guess what were some of the standout either performances, teams, players, champions? What are your thoughts on this first half of the group stage?
I was surprised to see the 3-0 at the top of the group in 3 groups. I had a feeling that Group C was going to have a little more parity, similar to Group D. Like going into day 3 in Group D, every team was 1-1, which I thought was pretty exciting. So that just like initial reactions, and just before we go any further, because we're likely just going to stick at groups. There were a bunch of games from play-ins that would have been in between this episode and last episode. We're just cutting those out. The implications don't really matter. It was LNG, Hanwha Life, Cloud9, and DFM that went through. LNG, DFM get seeded straight into the group stages, where Hanwha Life and Cloud9 had to play through had to play through best of series. So Cloud9 3-0'd PCE, and Hanwha Life 3-0'd Beyond Gaming. Now, I think if those series were 3-2s for the qualification matches, we likely would have talked about them. It probably would have had some implications for the group stages, but based on the fact that we had 2 3-0s and a lot of the champion picks haven't factored into what we've seen at groups. We've seen a lot of the top teams totally shifting the meta with the Yumi pick, the Graves. We've seen a lot of like very different things from the play and knockouts. So we're just gonna leave that for what it is. There were a bunch of games that we wouldn't be able to cover, but I think we can go more in depth on groups and maybe glean some of that information. With that being said, I'll go back and answer your question. I'll start with one of the top regions at the tournament. I'm surprised at Hanwha Life based on their run through the play-ins. I was expecting maybe bigger things from them in the group stages, but going down 1-2 after the first round robin was quite surprising for me. So I guess the 3-0 would be my like positive surprise, and then Hanwha Life going 1-2 was my kind of like I didn't expect that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I feel like I shouldn't be that surprised because, I mean, PSG is coming into the tournament with the Korean killers on their side. They've got Maple. They've got River. They have the spirit of Flash Wolves in their mid lane. And Flash Wolves was always known for beating the LCK. So
and not just beating them, like they never had a problem with them.
Yeah,
it was PSG, usually a neutral.
Yeah, PSG dominating Hanwha Life, the fourth seed from Korea. I was not. I was a little surprised because I thought Hanwha Life was playing extremely well, and I was looking at it as like, well, some team in Korea had to be the fourth team. All these teams are good, kind of thing. But PSG is really a legit team. They're very, very solid. Maple in the mid lane has been performing very well. In general, I feel like he obviously hasn't been perfect, but like, I mean, looking at some of the games he's played, even today with the playing the Silas into the Tryndamere, he was just hugely impactful compared to how Niski was on that same Tryndamere. So I've been very happy to see how well PSG Talon has been playing through the tournament. That was kind of my like pleasant surprise, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, so we've seen the first half of the group stages. We have the second round robin coming through. Now, let's start in Group A because we have Cloud9 0-3. Now, 0-3 does not mean you're out of the tournament. They can obviously win some games and then get head-to-head wins. Now, do you think we see any shakeups from Group A, or is it Damwon and FPX getting out of there pretty clean?
I don't know about pretty clean. I think that I think what I expect to see is a resurgence from Rogue in the second round robin. I don't know if that will necessarily be enough to get them up there, but I would not be surprised to see Rogue competing for that second position with FPX. I think that they have a pretty good squad. And honestly, I think the biggest thing that Cloud9 would potentially be able to do at this point is play spoiler and potentially just fuck with the standings. Being 0-3, like, yeah, you're not mathematically eliminated, but you have to go 3-0, and you also have to assume that Fun plus Phoenix gets either no wins or only a single win in the second round robin. So that's that's a pretty tough ask.
Right.
So I feel like in general, I don't necessarily expect it to change, but there's potential for Rogue to. I mean, they're only one game down on FPX in the standings. Like, all it takes is them winning that head to head potentially, and you're right back there. So
Right. My concern with Rogue is their support player. I don't think Trimby is of the caliber support that you need in these higher level games. He has not impressed me really with any of his engages. His Nami play was like really fucking sloppy. And if that's one of the picks that is priority, like the Lucian Nami lane is huge. We see a lot of teams from a bunch of the regions going after that. And Rogue did not look good on, well, I'll say Trimby specifically did not look good on the Nami pick, which makes the Lucian a good bit worse, which makes that a strategy that it becomes less desirable for that squad. So I think at a tournament where there's so many fucking all-star support players, Trimby just isn't cutting it, and his lack of precision is costing Rogue like big time.
I somewhat agree, but at the same time, I feel like LWX and Crisp have not been like a dominant force in the bot lane coming from Fun Plus Phoenix. Like they've performed solidly. They haven't been like a true, like they haven't been a detriment to the team really. But at the same time, I feel as though your focus for both those teams is, I would say, primarily on Tian and Doinby, in terms of like what they're doing and who they're like helping get ahead. I think in that matchup, Trimby is not as huge of a detriment as he is against against the likes of Damwon and everything in the matchup against like Ghost and Barrel.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think,
even Vulcan, like I think Vulcan is orders of magnitude better than Trimby.
yeah.
Like his roam timings are better. He's just like his skill shots are cleaner. His engages are just like they're crisp. I just don't see that same spark from Trimby. I would agree that based on matchups, there's certain games where it's going to matter less. But it's a glaring weakness for the team. Just like Bean is like for Fnatic, just like an easy thing that you can pick out. Like that's what it is for Trimby.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like it's been just that group. I think that Cloud9 has not looked very good. And FPX has looked a little shaky as well at times. So I feel like Rogue has the potential still to shake that up.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
yeah, no, I completely agree with your point with Trimby. I think he is definitely, I mean, he's a rookie, but he's also just like not quite up to the caliber of like the other supports in the tournament really. So
Yeah, that's kind of the angle I was coming at it from. Fucking Damwon looks so fucking good, man. They look so fucking good.
it's easy. It's cake for them.
Yeah, yeah. I loved every single one of their games. But yeah, so that's like kind of Group A. Less excitement there, just with how like one-sided a lot of the games are. But I think if we can slide over to, in my opinion, one of the more exciting groups, we have EDG, T1, 100 Thieves, and DFM, Detonation Focus Me from the LJL. What do you think about this group? T1 is 2-1, 100 Thieves 1-2. EDG has the big 3-0. I was impressed with 100 Thieves, man.
Yeah, they've honestly come out. They're they're playing hard. I think that they do have a pretty tough group as well. Obviously, RNG is a really, really solid team, and of course T1 as well. That was not an easy spot to be in. I mean, RNG won. They won MSI, right? Yeah.
RNG's in Group C. We're talking about Ever
Oh,
Gaming.
I'm sorry. EDG.
Yeah, you're good.
So,
A lot of acronyms.
Lots of them, but
to juggle.
Seriously, but yeah, no, EDG has performed extremely well. T1 similarly, so 100 Thieves like coming up, getting a win and everything. Like they definitely have a little life in them, but that group I'm still feeling like is pretty confidently going to stay as EDG versus T1. I don't see that changing too much. I mean, the 100 Thieves T1 game today was it wasn't that close.
No, it wasn't. I had intimations of 100 Thieves maybe being a little closer than they were, but yeah, has not come to fruition yet. Obviously, we still have some games to go, but yeah, the just having the 1-2 does look pretty good. They're along the lines with Rogue there, same with Team Liquid, Madline. So at least they're on par with their other main competitive region with some of the teams from Europe and North America. So that's kind of good. But yeah, overall, I was hoping we would see DFM maybe get a win, but against who, I don't know. Even 100 Thieves beat them, but I thought DFM looked really good in the play-ins. But
yeah, I mean the game between them and 100 Thieves, they're honestly the teams that are coming in from the play-ins. Just haven't unfortunately seemed to pan out. So I mean LNG's looking pretty good actually, so I'll take that back. But Hanwha Life is towards the bottom, C9 towards the bottom, Detonation Focus Me at the bottom of theirs as well. It's kind of just seems as though they are kind of where they should be, I guess, coming in as the playing groups being towards the bottom of their main stage groups. You never know what kind of upsets you could get. Who knows, maybe Detonation Focus Me will hand EDG their only loss of the group stage or something like that. It could happen. They're not bad teams. They're just not as good as the teams that are at the top of their groups.
And what's unfortunate, I guess the angle that I often come with when I just look at these numbers is some of these games aren't as one-sided as the just the numbers show, and I think that's what can get lost in all of the world's analysis, is because there's so many games, so many players, so many moments. You're just kind of taking these broad strokes, but yeah, that's a beautiful point to make. I'm glad you said it. Is these aren't bad players, they're not bad teams, they're just not as good as their opponents. And when the meta is shifting literally daily, literally daily, the meta is shifting, and teams don't know what they're supposed to have to know for the next day, and all this crazy stuff happens at these tournaments. So yeah, it's I think it's good to make that note.
Well, and these are best of ones too, so there are always interesting strats that you can pull out in best of ones. I mean, like you said, with the meta changing daily, I mean we've seen that there are some really dominant champions that are coming out, and that I'm looking at some of these teams that are lower in the standings, and I'm just just fucking ban it. The Graves, just ban it.
Yeah.
Get that out of here. That was something that I didn't expect to be as strong as it is in this current world's meta and everything. But Cloud9's picks today against it were I was really disappointed with. Like, I was sitting there watching them draft and everything, seeing, oh, like the Graves top lane got picked. Cloud9 has counter pick in like for last pick and everything, and they're sitting there and they pick Jax again into a ranged matchup. And I'm like, I was sitting there just like, pick Malphite. Just pick Malphite. Fudge has played it before. He's shown that he's good at it. It's got great engage. It's got all these tools. And like why pick the melee matchup that is like worse instead of just picking like the melee matchup that you'll survive? Like, take the Malphite, take the Mundo, take those like tanky motherfuckers. Like, the Jax is not gonna do it for you. And so like seeing how teams are adapting in these picks and bans, like with the other game today that was interesting was the Sejuani getting pulled out by Team Liquid. And like, very, very interesting pick and everything. As soon as they picked it, I was like, the other team should just pick Trundle. That was my immediate response to it. Was like, pick Trundle. You've already got your like picks laid out and everything. Just, that is the way to go, and you will be in a good position. Because we haven't seen the Trundle played. It was played a bunch during the like LCK playoffs. It was played a bit in NA, and I was expecting it to be like more prevalent, but with how many like assassin junglers we've had, it hasn't really been out there. As soon as I saw the tank jungler, I was like, okay, they're just going to pick Trundle. And they had an opportunity to ban it too, and they just didn't.
Well, they chose to ban the Renekton, which the casters talked about was being like kind of odd in that moment, because they shouldn't have needed to be scared of the Renekton, because there was something had already happened where it wasn't that important, and then they chose the weird matchup. And then, I mean, that was a game too where Blabber just got fucking killed in the river at level 1, right?
Yeah, it was, and that was obviously those things happen, and it just put them behind off the bat. But
then they played so well around it too. Like they took his red buff, like cleared the rat, like didn't they took most of the Raptors left alone. Dude, yeah. They fucked him so hard.
Yeah, Damwon
really
put him so far behind. But like also at the same time, Fudge was just down, like it was like 45 CS to 25 CS at like,
and that happened in pick a ban
7 minutes. Like that was a pick ban choice. Like you decided to just put, and things like that. Like Blabber, like Damwon's a good team. They did their prep. They're like, oh, this is most likely where he's going to be. Cloud9 doesn't group up typically for their level 1s. They're just out there getting vision control and whatever. And so they're like, fuck it. Let's like take a gamble. Worst case scenario, we take a little damage and back on out. And instead they end up getting a kill and just like being able to push that lead pretty well going forward. So
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, and that was I think the story of Cloud9 overall, and we keep like bouncing back to them, but yeah, it was the story overall where it felt like they like had advantages that they could have taken, or advantages that they weren't able to capitalize on. So yeah, it was just unfortunate.
Yeah, but looking at, I guess if we want to move on to Group C.
Yeah.
I think this is like, even with Group D, Group C might be equal with Group D, I think, in terms of like the potential for some shifts and some moving around of positions and everything. Like, although RNG has looked pretty solid overall, and they have gotten themselves to that 3-0, I really think that there is a little bit of a potential for some of the other teams in their group for Hanwha Life and for PSG to potentially shake things up and shift things around in there. Fnatic, like I said, I really genuinely feel like they're playing at a disadvantage with being like, yes, maybe they can pick up a win, but I really don't expect it. Teams that are coming in and playing with a substitute player into the world championships against the best players in the world, like that's a really tough spot to be in. So I don't expect
it to go that well.
Yeah, so I don't expect them to shake things up really much, but for PSG and Hanwha Life, they've both looked very good at different moments in time in this tournament so far, and I think that they could definitely shake things up with RNG, and there's potential there for some different things to shift around in that group. So.
Yeah, I think I would agree, especially with PSG Talon already taking a game off Hanwha. I think that's going to be super telling for the next round robin, is that I think anybody is going to be able to beat anybody in that top of the three. And then, like you were talking about with Cloud9, if Fnatic is able to play spoiler to anybody, to any of the other teams, that's going to make it even more interesting. Where I think even if the pick and ban can go really well, I think even RNG might lose to a Fnatic in the right conditions. So yeah, I think there's a lot that can be shifted. But you're right. PSG Talon, I think, is, if there's ever a team that's going to come out above the Chinese or the Korean teams, it's going to be Maple and River and the Korean Killers.
Yeah, I definitely could see them going, making it into the quarterfinals and seeing what they could shake up in the in that spot. Group D, though, like, I think is the kind of the most fun group to watch so far. Like, what are you thinking from that group and where everything is at right now?
I was surprised that I'm pretty sure it was LNG that beat Gen G.
I believe so.
Yeah, I was surprised at that game, very much so. I thought that was a crazy game. It seemed like Gen G was poised to go 3-0 in their group, it was, as well.
Mad Lions that beat Gen G.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. Even still,
that was
I was
in
surprised.
A 47-minute game.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that might be the longest one of the tournament so far.
Gotcha. Oh man, I'm just getting them like all mixed up.
Dude,
yeah,
it's
I was just
24
surprised.
League of Legends games in 3 days, and we've both been able to watch a lot of them. It's a lot of League of Legends to follow.
A lot of acronyms, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Gen G not going 3-0, I was actually surprised because their roster is like really stacked. They have a lot of really good players. But yeah, the long game with Mad Lions, Armut, Elyoya, Humanoid, I think that team is just stacked. Like, Mad Lions probably looks the best out of the Western teams.
Oh yeah,
which
so for
just
sure.
makes that group look super exciting. It looked like Liquid has some potential, but they're not like able to pull it together as a team. I feel like they have a lot of individual skill, but something about the team play seemed off, and now is not the time to not be moving as a squad.
Yeah, and it seems like every time like certain players kind of have it together, like other ones don't. Like the game against LNG, Jensen like just was pretty solidly fine, but like he wasn't making the impact that you would like to see from a Twisted Fate. But at the same time, like, you see every other person on his team go 0 and something, and you're like, well, his 1-1 doesn't look that bad. Or
Right.
in the game today against Gen G, like, tactical, like it was just like very disconjointed throughout. Like, every time the certain people were going in and other people were not, or you're just having these like dysfunctional fights, and they were able to really drag that game out and like show some promising performance at a couple different points, but then they just do something silly and just kind of throw it away. Like they would pull themselves back into the game from the brink of destruction, and then they would just be like, up, we're like almost even again, and now we're down a shit ton of gold and kills and things like that. So it was just difficult. I do think that Team Liquid has probably the most promise of the NA teams. I mean, 100 Thieves hasn't looked bad, but I think that with the way their group is set up in Group D and everything, Team Liquid has the most potential for moving forward based on how things have gone so far. But you're right, they're like not on the same page, and I hope they can kind of get it together, because these first 3 days we've just had like one game per team per day, but we're about to go into that second round robin where all the teams are playing.
The rest of the games are played on that day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a huge change to how everything's gone so far. I mean, tomorrow we've got the group A going off, and we're going to see Cloud9 play and hopefully get at least one win out of their 3 games tomorrow. But who knows?
Oh, what are you talking about? They're going to get 3 Ws, man. You got to be confident.
I'm trying to be realistic.
Don't you have your hopium canister, dude?
Nah, man. I'm about the realism. I'm gonna root for them nonetheless, and I'm gonna hope that they do well and pull off some big dubs. But to expect them to, that's a different story.
Big dubs, dude.
Yeah.
big dubs. That's gonna be Cloud9.
I can't get myself all high on that hopium just for the crash and the copium.
I'm with you.
I don't want to be putting, and also I feel like that's kind of disrespectful to some of the other teams in the groups, like especially Damwon, to be like, oh yeah, Cloud9's gonna go 3-0, and Damwon's sitting over there like, we went 3-0, but it wasn't even close.
Yeah, you're probably a little bit delusional as a fan if you think like there's a chance. You probably just want to be realistic and just analyze the skill of the other teams, right?
Makes me a little hesitant to be one of those guys. Sure. But hey, I understand people wanting their teams to do well and everything, but you gotta
you don't want to be a blind faith guy.
Yeah, you gotta be a little sense of realism in there. You don't want to let yourself get let down too bad.
Agreed. Big agrees.
So, I was actually though looking at I didn't know if they were going to do the same style of like qualifying for this like main stage as they did for the play-ins. I think it would be interesting for them to kind of like they did in the play-ins have like one team automatically advance and the second and third team play a best of series to like be the second seed from that group into the quarterfinals. That's just a side note, because like that's the way that they did it for the knockout stage in the play-ins and everything. They were like, one team auto qualifies, the other teams have to play best of series to make it, kind of thing. Do you think that would be a good thing to add into this like group stage? I think
they would have chop it from the one and add it. Like, it'd be a really long fucking tournament if they did that for both of them. I think you just make the play-ins the short version, and then if you're going to have that type of seeding, do that for the main group stage. Because that's the one that people want to see more of, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I was looking at it, and I'm like, couldn't you? You could just add. I guess you'd probably have to add 2 days in to the like main stage to do that. To have like two best of fives on one day and two best of fives on another day. Um,
Yeah, that'd be a lot. That'd
yeah.
be a lot, I think. I don't
So
know. I don't know.
I
People are watching, man. People are tuning in. I think they had like the most concurrent viewers or something like that.
yeah. I
So,
just it was something interesting because I always feel like I'm not a huge fan of the world's format and the fact that they have like there's no double elimination or anything like that in the knockout stage and everything, and I feel like that is a pretty common thing in a lot of different esports. I mean, you see double elimination, I'm pretty sure, in Dota, in the international. You typically see it in majors for CSGO. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Valorant has like double elimination in some of their tournaments and
they
all.
have done losers.
So the fact that like in League of Legends they don't have that in the knockout stage, I think it would be interesting to add an extra, hey, maybe a best of three between team 2 and team 3 to see which team makes it out into the
Right.
quarterfinals of the knockout stage. Like, I feel like there's room for more good League of Legends, and I just wish that it wasn't just best of ones constantly. Like,
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. If there was a mid phase of best of threes, I think that'd be cool because the data you get from best of ones is just not that good, and I think overall you just want to see more games. And best of threes can be pretty tight,
yeah,
especially and maybe even Riot is privy to the meta in a way where it's like, well, we're expecting these, games from this amount of time to this amount of time. Is there a world where, just based on time we can add it in?
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Just see more games, more competition between the top teams.
Yeah, it just seems kind of silly, like that two teams could go, say, like 4-2 in their group or something like that, and then they're like, "Oh, you get a one-game playoff to see which team makes it to the next round." It's like, fucking throw those teams against or like maybe for tiebreakers instead of it just being a one game playoff, have that be a best of three series instead. Like that would be a way. Like instead of if there's
Tiebreakers should just be a 1v1 between the mid laners.
oh, I'm just thinking like instead of like there's a like my original idea where if hey maybe the second seed is 4-2 and the third seed is 2-4.
Mhm.
Hey, maybe instead, like those teams, you don't have to make them go to a playoff because they're not the same. But maybe if teams are tied in their group, like put them in a best of three instead of a just best of one play in, like sudden death kind of match for who goes on to the
Right.
next round. I don't know.
I don't know. I think there's definite variations to be had, and it seems like Riot has just stuck to the same kind of format for a while. But yeah, I think there's definitely some shakeups.
Yeah, I would just be happy to see, like you said, I want to see more good League of Legends. That's my primary thing. And when you only have two international tournaments a year where the best teams from each region are going to play each other, like I think it's just a lot of fun to have more games. Like
Yeah.
that's a great thing.
So then there's the question of like, do you want it all jammed in at Worlds, or would you want a third international tournament over the course of the year? And that'd be my vote. Is just
I
do a
would
whole nother
say
thing.
three or like to have three or four of them. Like you can have a
Sure,
mid-season
sure.
one, you can have the worlds, and then just have like a in between stuff here and there. I mean, they used to have like the IEM tournaments, and they used to have the like MLG different stuff that they did. Like, it was fun seeing just random teams show. Like, that was, I think, your and my first taste of Unicorns of Love was when they came to IEM San Jose, and like we're just like running through people with Hecarim mid and weird shit like that. Like, I'm pretty sure they dumped on TSM that tournament. And like we're like, who the fuck is Unicorns of Love with this like manager guy who's coming up on stage shirtless wearing a unicorn beanie? Like, who the fuck is this guy? Like,
dude, it really was a weird fucking time, man. It was just like literal, just basement kids,
but
just
it was
on
cool.
stage
Like,
in front of a camera.
You could have a team from LCS and EU LCS, and then a team from Brazil, and like a challenger Korean team, and like all these different random ass teams, in a Turkish team, and like all in the same tournament, and they were just like, it was just fun. Like, you had random tournaments like that just happened throughout the year, and the more and more League of Legends continued down the road, they were just like, only MSI and Worlds, and like, hey, we'll throw you little Rift Rivals as a treat. Like,
don't you want to see Earth with the pros, dude?
Like, Earth with the pro, and you can see EU versus NA, and you can see LCK versus LPL. But like,
All-Star games.
But you don't get everyone in the same place. No, that's All Stars. I'm talking about Rift Rivals, where they're like only LPL versus LCK and only EU versus NA. It's like, no, I want to see everyone.
I want to see all of them. Yeah.
I think dabbled. It breeds better League of Legends. Like, you're getting to have teams play against different like teams in metas that are different from yours. Like, we talked about each of the different major regions before Worlds, and they all had unique picks and everything like that. Now we're like seeing that kind of come into play. We're seeing the Jax be like pretty decent priority champion. We're seeing like the Kennen come out in a number of these games, where like these are things that, yeah, every region had fucking Leona, LeBlanc, Twisted Fate, Lee Sin, like these like top priority champions. But now that we're getting into the World's meta, we're seeing like the Jax picks. We're seeing some of these other unique picks come out from like different regions, and it's fun to see how everyone kind of shifts around with it.
Yeah, and then it's obvious we just like get starved for this kind of League of Legends, because we're just like, we want this all the time now. Yeah, for sure.
I know it's like logistically difficult in a lot of ways, and that might be why they don't do it. But fuck it, rent a cruise ship, go out into international waters where you don't need visas, and have everyone play League of Legends.
Dude, the internet would be so shite, though, man.
We're doing it land.
Rainstorm, and you'd be like,
it's on land.
Sideways.
It's on land. It doesn't matter.
Well, it'd be on land, but it's not on land.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think there's like shifts, and I don't think like, I'm not trying to say by any means that like shifts in the way that the tournament format would change like the groups or anything. I'm just trying to like just brainstorming off the top of my head like ways that we get more fun League of Legends.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with more League of Legends, because the more international games we have, the more I think the more fun everybody has, and that makes for a happier world. So the more League of Legends we have, the happier the world is.
That was not the way it worked when I was playing the game, but now
now it can be. Now that we're enlightened. end.
Yeah, but I guess just from this first like half of the round robin and everything, or the first round robin, were there like what were some of the standout picks that you were either like maybe surprised by or like consistent picks that were being taken that you didn't necessarily expect? What were I guess just any thoughts with that?
The big notes that I have here are the Lucian Nami lane. The Yumi was really surprising.
Yeah.
I didn't even like really know about Yumi. But seeing how high priority she was like kind of crazy. And the Kennen is just fascinating. I love that champion so much. The little electric mouse. It's fucking awesome. Canna played it today to beautiful effect. The amount of flash flanks that he had was amazing. So yeah, I think those are my standout ones. I think the Lucian Nami lane is super fun to watch. It's just so flashy and does so much damage.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, so
another
those
one
are
that
kind of my key picks.
yeah, another one that you had mentioned with me that like you didn't mention here, the Silas. Man,
Oh, well,
that
I
has
just feel like
been
I talk about Silas all the time.
dude, it's such a good pick and I like honestly for myself like the Graves and Silas, I just like I want teams to ban them because they both seem so strong. Like Silas, even though it doesn't have a phenomenal win rate right now, is just insanely impactful and it's like it's such a just huge pick to be able to be like, I'm not really sure what I want to play. I don't really have like a specific counter to the other mid laner. Fuck it, I'll play Silas and I'll steal people's
Mhm.
ults and I'll like not lose lane that hard. And it's just like a bit it's getting a bit boring. Like I like seeing some of the mix-ups with everything or like the Rise and Twisted Fate, although they're consistent champions we've seen a lot, like they can impact a lot of parts of the game in a lot of interesting and weird ways, and the Silas just kind of like piggybacks off that. It's interesting to see how it can work, but I'm kind of hoping that we maybe see some counters to that come out or something like that. I don't know if there is a counter to Silas, really.
Yeah, I think finding a good answer to Silas is going to be really tough. I think the one thing that you can do against it is ban it or not pick good champions. Pick champions with bad alts, so then they don't want to pick Silas and take them from you.
And then you just lose
Um,
because all your champions have bad ults.
exactly. So it seems like a lose lose to me. But yeah, he is I think a very high skill ceiling champion. Both I said this to you offline. Both like to play with and against. I think it's super tough. You have to know the champion pool of the opponents. Know if that's if that's a pick that they can go for, and then like that makes picks like Alistair like non-existent, right? Because if you pick an Alistair, they pick Silas, give Silas 70% damage reduction. He's just gonna run through your whole team.
Yeah, with
So it's
his
this
crazy
like
AP and yeah.
it's this like very weird like meta mind game that has to happen over top of every single pick and ban because of this champion that has choice of your five champion ultimates,
Yeah.
right? And if you've heard Caster say before, a champion is only as good as their ultimate. Well, fuck, you just have a guy that can take all the good ones,
Yeah.
right? And a different one for different scenarios. So yeah, I think he's super. He's fascinating at least, but I can also say that I see your point with the boring, because we are seeing every pick and ban kind of revolving around it. You
Right.
know, it's getting picked into the TF, it's getting picked into the who's the other fucking melee mid laner that's getting played.
Uh Melee mid laner. Oh, we've had the LeBlanc, the TF, the Rise, Aurelia. Aurelia has been
Aurelia.
um Trying to think who else from. I mean,
Maybe that really,
Tryndamere.
Tryndamere.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I knew it. Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
where you just get the Undying Rage, like you just have to hit it after he hits his, and then you'll. It's like I don't know, man. It is.
He uses the
It
Trynd
seems
ult
pretty
better
free.
than Trynd does.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's kind of the best way to sum up that champion. So yeah, he's been hyper impactful.
I
Speaking of just like picks in general, I think it's fascinating, and this is what we kind of started the conversation with is a lot of the play-ins didn't really matter for the groups. The top teams came in with like picks that just totally shook it up, like the Graves and the Yumi, and then teams were like, "Oh fuck, we gotta and then they kind of all shifted to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, really exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, it's honestly been a lot of fun to watch so far. I've definitely been intrigued by some of the different picks. The Shen coming out occasionally, even though no one's won with it.
Yeah, and it's support, right? So I'm not like too
Yeah.
hot on that.
I mean, we've seen the Pike come out. We saw Rumble come out. Like there have been some solid picks that different champions have come into play and everything. Like we did get to see a little bit of the Viego after the first day. Day one, I was like, is Viego still a champion? And then day two, they were like, yeah, he's kind of here. I was like,
Some of the
okay.
junglers, he is, yeah, which is totally fine. I think he's okay. A lot of MF, like every MF, pretty much.
Yeah, I was surprised that she was not 100% in the pick ban percentage. She's only 79%. Lee Sin is the only 100% pick ban champion so far during Worlds.
Oh wow! That really makes sense.
Stage. So
Right.
LeBlanc is second highest, then TF, Lucian, Yumi, all tied at third. So there've been a bit of a shake up with the picks and bans a little bit, which is it's fun. But yeah, the Silas and the Graves, I'm just like, part of it's because they dicked on Cloud9, and I'm just like, or the Western teams, I'm just like, fuck, man, like just get rid of those. They're dicking on us.
Either get rid of them or fucking pick them yourself, man.
Yeah, but it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm looking forward to the second round robins. Like I said, we have Group A tomorrow with the Cloud9, Damwon, Cloud9, Damwon, Rogue, and FPX, and then going through the rest of the groups over the next few days. So,
yeah, big weekend for League of Legends. Thank gosh we don't have to mix it in with a race again. But yeah, some exciting games coming up here. Looking forward to the knockout stages, but still a lot of group games to go. Aaron, any final thoughts on what we've seen so far?
No, not really. I definitely, like I said, I'm pulling for our Western teams. Go Cloud9, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, Fnatic, Mad Lions, Rogue. But I don't expect them to necessarily like make it out of groups. This could be a year where we don't get a single Western team out of groups, which would be pretty brutal.
Kind of par for the course, though, man. Not a big surprise would that be?
Not from NA, from EU, a little bit more surprising.
Yeah, EU usually has one or two teams to get out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, but no, I don't think I have anything else. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go over the next little bit of the group stage and all, because I think by our next episode we should be through a decent bit of the not just like the round robins, but I think we might be through quarterfinals as well.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, I think the goal then is going to be do do like a light roundup of the final games, and then deep dive the quarters, because then we'll have like 3-1s and 3-2s to go into.
Actually, I was wrong. I just looked. So by next episode, we'll be fully through the group stage, and then it won't be till Friday after the episode comes out that we'll get into the best of fives for the quarterfinals and all. So,
nice. So we actually get a little bit of breathing room then.
Yeah, and those are just one per day for the quarterfinals, and then one per day for the semis, and one for the finals. So, they're just doing one best of 5 per day. So those could be pretty quick days, could be long days, depending on how those series go. But yeah,
obviously we're hoping for the silver scrapes. Silver scrape.
But we have 5 straight days of League of Legends ahead of us still. Actually, no. Tomorrow we don't have any. But so.
Oh, and then it's Friday Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yep, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So I was wrong. We don't have the group A tomorrow. That would be on Friday.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool.
So. But yeah, that's all I've got. A lot of League of Legends coming up. Justin, what is Divinity?
So it's an RPG. It's kind of in the. I'm not sure what the term is. I don't know if there's a better word to describe it. But it's an RPG where we're in a land of wizards and witches and dragons and trolls and whatnot. And so it's myself, Ian, and Brett, and we're playing through the campaign.
Is there an online
I don't think it's PvP.
Okay, so
it's just as a party moving through the campaign.
Okay, so it's not an MMO. It's just
correct.
Okay, cool. It's just a multiplayer RPG. Interesting. So how does this start? Are you playing Divinity 1 or Divinity 2?
Divinity 2.
Original Sin 2? Is that what it?
Yeah. Okay. So Original Sin is the storyline that it's in. But I'm not too worried about any of the details. I'm more worried about just the main gameplay element. So the idea in the storyline is each of the 4 party members are all God-woken. So we have the potential to be the next divinity, the next god. Right? So all 4 of us are on a quest to get to that point and save the realm and beat the bad guy, slay the dragon, whatever the fuck. But nested within that is only one of us can ascend.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, that's fun.
It's sick. So, while yes, we're progressing through together, there has to be elements of where we're trying to get an edge. I'm trying to get an edge up on Ian and Brett.
So you're not sharing items and
Well, we are, but. And I don't know to what degree they're keeping info from me, but I'm for sure making moves in the game that I'm not saying to them. Teching into this thing, putting a point here, having this thing. And I think they can examine and maybe look at my skill pages, but if I'm not outrightly saying it, it's going to go right over their heads. Now, I'm also playing a summoning class. So I can get more things to assist in my battle. So
gotcha.
I'm not 1v3 technically. I'm gonna be more 3v1v1v1, which is a huge advantage. All right, so that's note number 1. Note number 2 is there's a segment in the game called the Arena, which is on the first island, where it pits all of your party members together. Brett opted out, but I took on Ian 1v2. Ian's controlling 2 characters just because we couldn't find a 4th player. But even still, I just with my single guy, I beat him in the arena. So
1v2.
1v2. So as we go forward, I'm like very confident in the final end game. Like
So, do you guys have similar character types, or did you each have to pick a very different character, or could you have picked the same ones, or?
I think we could have gone like similar routes, but to get through the game, we have to diversify. And I think there's a world where at the end, Ian's probably gonna like try and respec everything. He's probably gonna try and like based on whatever good armor he has, that's probably what he's gonna try and go to. But I'm spending the whole game with this in mind, right?
Yeah.
Like Ian's like he's all over the place when he plays those games. Like every new piece of equipment that he gets, he like thinks that has to be the build. So he'll like undo everything and then redo it for that. He's got the wrong way. I'm teching into like crit for my magic. I'm gonna have like, dude, I'm gonna fuck their day up. And we're even in fights where like they're getting murked off, and I'm just like full health with my totems, healing my things, shields, bring the reins down. Like I'm the one that's like bringing us to the end of fights. And they're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be the divine at the end of all this. I'm like, So even in this like friendly game, there's this element of like, I'm gonna fuck Ian up at the end of this.
Dude, that's so much fun. I
love it.
I just think it's awesome that like that's such a unique characteristic. Like most of the time when you're playing a multiplayer game with friends, you can just be like when I play Warzone with my friends, I'm like sitting there. I can go and I can look at what their KD ratio is. I can look at their like headshot percentage and their like how much damage they're putting out per game when we're playing together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, I played way better than you today, or I like, yeah, like I carried the team. I put the team on my back and that kind of thing. But it's so different. But like that kind of just like, I'm like shit talking, but there's not really anything I get out of if we win a game. I don't get anything different because I played a little better, or just we all get the win. There's not that inner conflict amongst your team at the same time, which is really like a unique like gameplay style.
It's fascinating. And like as I'm thinking about the game, there's like aspects of like, oh, like what am I gonna do about that aspect of Brett's character? Like how do I get like dodge that? Or I feel like Batman where I'm like trying to come up with like the perfect counter for like everybody in the Justice League.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's sick. It's an element of the game that I didn't think I would have so much fun with.
I'm not
as
surprised
we've gotten
that
into
you're
it. I'm like,
enjoying it.
oh, this is great.
I feel like that's right up your alley.
Yeah, like right up my alley. So that was the angle of that I wanted to bring because I've had a lot of fun with those game sessions.
That's fun. So
yeah,
even though you haven't
too.
gotten some Magic games to fuck Ian up in, you're like, I can do it in video games too.
And this is the long con too. This is the long con.
Yeah, and I know that Ian and Brett are not listening this late in the podcast if they've started it. So. Sorry, boys.
No chance. There's no way they've listened to one episode, so I think we're good.
You're getting fucked on, boys.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's been what I've been having fun with. That is what I meant to say.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's wrap this episode up here, Aaron. Give me your flavor of the week here.
So flavor of the week, for food, I had some nice raw oysters down in Florida. Fresh seafood is one of my favorite things out there. But I do really enjoy some nice raw oysters. I think some people are like weird about texture and things like that, which I get. It's definitely a different texture, but man, they are good. I like them a lot. So that was my food. Music, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to go into my fall music playlist as I create it.
Gotcha.
And so there was like some punk rock and stuff like that to kind of like start out with. But I know I had mentioned folk, but some even like country I'm kind of starting to delve into a little bit more. I feel like country has some good fall vibes. So
Okay.
I just the topics are like bonfires, and I when I think of like pickup trucks and farming and things like that with country music, I'm like, oh, hay rides and like
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm with that.
bonfires and like drinking in the woods. Those sound like fall things. So I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
Fair
yeah,
enough.
country, adding that a little bit into my playlist is, I guess, my music for this week. But my show, which I think is the most interesting part of my flavor of the week, is Squid Game that's on Netflix. I'm sure you've seen a lot of memes and like GIFs and
Oh,
different shit
everybody's
about it.
talking about it for sure. For
Have
sure.
you and Sarah watched it yet?
Haven't watched it. What do you think about it?
Really good show. Do you guys watch any anime together?
Mm-mm.
Do you guys watch any non-English shows?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so you're gonna want to watch the dubbed version with the English subtitles on. I will
Mm-hmm.
warn you, the voices are pretty brutal for some of the characters.
Yeah.
Still like the concept of the show, the way they've done it, the filming, like the story, like it's kind of a thriller almost, like you don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to happen next and like how everything ties together and all. Extremely compelling, really really fun to watching and everything. The only issue I have is really I don't watch things subbed. um I only watch dubbed. Like any show, movie, whatever that's not in English, I listen to the one where they speak over it in English. Um,
Right.
so the
Filthy
voices are.
casual.
I know. Hey man, I don't read books normally, so I normally will go and watch a show or a movie instead of reading a book. Why do they think that I want to read a goddamn book when I'm watching a TV show? I already picked a TV show over reading a book. So just speak it. That's
Fair enough. Fair
like
enough.
I'm not watching TV because I want to read. I'm watching TV exactly because I don't want to read. Like
Okay. I'm with that.
so that's my opinion on that. But yeah, the voices are a little rough at some points, but the show itself really phenomenal. Colleen and I have two episodes left.
Nice.
Um, so it's all the little bows are being tied up and everything, loose ends being
Murdered.
yep, exactly.
Nice.
So it's a fun show to watch. I would
Dude,
recommend
I
it to
love when a
anyone.
loose end gets murdered. It's my
Me too.
favorite.
I love murdered loose ends.
Tie that loose end right up with a murder.
Yep,
Mmm.
nice old
Mmm.
stabbing.
Dude,
Love it when
get
people get
stabby with it.
stabby.
Get stabby with it, dude. No, that's
That's
awesome.
yeah.
I'm glad you're
So
enjoying it.
no, but I would definitely recommend it to you and Sarah as well. Like I think you guys
Okay.
would enjoy it. It's like very very like interesting show. A lot of psychological aspects of it and things like that.
Hmm.
So
Right.
so solid. But how about you? What is your flavor of the week?
So my visual medium is, and I'm gonna just lump them all in. The one that I took inspiration from was Twitches, but we looked at a bunch of other ones there on the list. The old Disney Channel movies. So it was like Night at the Cineplex, Luck of the
Oh
Irish,
shit.
Brink.
Yo, Luck
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
Irish was a
yeah.
good. Did you guys watch oh, what is it? Not like Zora, the fucking
Oh, Xenon, girl of the
Xenon,
21st century.
yeah.
We talk about that shit all the time. Boom, boom, boom. You make my heart go zoom, zoom, zoom.
You want to
Yeah.
know what my favorite Disney Channel original movie is?
I'm gonna guess Smart House.
You are incorrect. I actually hate Smart House. It creeps me out a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the concept is a little freaky for me. The
Okay.
futuristic house
It
coming
is a horror
to...
film.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mhm.
But no, Johnny Tsunami.
Yeah, dude, Hang 10, where he was a surfer and then he goes to be a snowboarder.
Yep,
And then they're all
exactly.
like, ew, you fucking boarder, get on that side of the mountain.
They're-
He's like, why can't we all just rip together, bro?
Yeah, they're like,
Love that
if I
shit.
beat you in a race, even though I've only been snowboarding for 2 days and you've been
Yeah.
skiing for your whole life, if I win, we get to share the mountain. And if
We
you
gotta
win,
share the mountain, dude.
and if you win, it's the 1950s and we're segregated.
Yeah, yeah. But what I think is so amazing about them is like just how wholesome they are, and like obviously, like how many times have you seen Johnny Tsunami? Like a million,
Oh,
probably.
so many, yeah.
Well, at least that's what you think. But that number is finite, right? And there's
I've probably
something
seen
to
it
be
like
said.
8 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But here we are, like 30,000 years later, and we're like, we know the exact gist of the movie.
Yep.
So, and that's the angle that I have written here is like they're so wholesome. I think they tried to teach such like good values in like non-offensive
Hey,
ways.
everyone.
Really,
Welcome to the
like
Tall and Short
they're
Media.
super pleasant to watch. They don't feel like I don't feel like they were like shoving anything down my throat. It was just like.
Just
Wow,
good
I remember
family
all of
values
those-
without being aggressive about it.
You got it. I was just like, man, I'm reflecting fondly on like all of these movies.
Yeah.
So that's my rec is Disney Channel movies from the Twitches, Luck of the Irish, and Brink era.
Nice.
Dank memes, and
Like
just
the
so
Irish was
wholesome.
wild.
So funny. Where he fucking grows the ears and he's like, no.
It
And
just
he's like growing the red hair and
becomes-
shit. And he's like, no.
Just becomes a leprechaun. Just
Brutal, man. I
Wild.
mean, you lose your soul as you become you gingerfy. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah. But
so
no,
my
good
food-
recommendation. Solid.
Thank you. My food for the week, Sarah made some chicken noodle soup that is amazing. And to your point about your, fall playlist and this and that, it's got the very like sweater weather vibes as it gets cooler and chillier out. So yeah, the chicken noodle soup is always good. And then
Nice.
for music, I just want to tell a small little story about a gentleman who wanted to tell me all about how cool it's going to be to have Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Dr. Dre, and Eminem at the halftime show, but had the gall to ask what the fuck a Kendrick Lamar is.
Excuse me?
Yeah, and that's how he said it too. And I was like, wait, what? Like you? How don't you know? And then he didn't even want to hear it. He didn't even want to like have any context presented to him, and he was just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I was like, what the fuck?
Wait. So he.
He was super excited about Dre, Snoop, Mary J. Blige, and Eminem, and then just like glanced. So he was just like, yeah, and I don't know who this Lamar kid is. That's like how he said it.
The top rapper on the charts for like years. What?
I had the same reaction, my dude. I was just
Who
like,
said
I kind
this?
of. I'm not gonna say it out loud.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want them to get any more publicity than they already have because they don't need to be spewing that fucking bullshit out into the world.
Yeah, it was just really weird. Had like big boomer vibes to it, and the fact that like he wouldn't even let me give him some context. It had that whole just like willful blindness, like I don't care to learn something new, and I was just like, damn, dude, I just
like
lost
not-
the whole.
not to knock any of the other artists who are going to be there, because like I'm excited to see them perform. Like, when's the last time when's the last time people have seen any of those like other people perform live? Like,
they might be touring. I don't know.
Maybe, but like not.
What concerned me was like his unwillingness to like learn something new that day.
Gotcha.
He was just so happy to be like he was so happy to think he was like he had this hot roast on like some guy, whatever. When in reality it was like, dude, you just sound like an idiot.
Yeah, like everyone on the planet Earth knows who Kendrick Lamar is. Like, he's not new. And he's very, very talented. So you look a little silly.
Very silly. So I lost a lot of respect for that guy. So
rough.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Big roughs. So that's my music for the week. I have a hard time. I don't think I hear as much like new music as I might like to for this segment.
I'm the same
I often
way.
have to come with little things like that.
Yeah, I get into routines with stuff, so I do have to kind of be cognizant of like different choices I make with it, or like different things like that. So I feel you on that as well.
Although I do look forward to, I mean, there are segments of the year where like content like ebbs and flows, where like we have this to talk about, but then we don't have this, and like those are the times that we can include all that stuff. So yeah, it's just a cycling of the content as the calendar goes round here for the Tall and Short of It podcast.
Yep, and that's what we get when we've been doing this for over a year. And we get those ebbs and flows. We get the shifts in time with, before too long, League of Legends is going to be wrapping up. Before too long, F1's going to be wrapping up. And we're going to still be the best F1 podcast out there. So
giving you all the cold weather news of who's looking at cars, who got a new outfit, are there engineers in this factory?
Whose hair is the fastest for the upcoming season?
Hair is the fastest. The questions everybody wants to know. But yeah, that's all I have for my flavor of the week here. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I just appreciate everyone who's listening. Glad to be here with you doing another episode, Justin. For anyone out there listening, of course, you have found us already, but you can find us on Google, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, a number of different places to listen, watch along, be involved in other content that we do put out, like the Push and Pull medical massage podcast that Justin does, our race companions, any other videos and content that we look to put out in the future, of course, will be on YouTube, so keep an eye out there. But yeah, that's about all I got.
I just wanted to say thank you for anybody who's listening. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell us what you think. If you liked what you heard here this evening, go ahead and subscribe if you want to hear more. This has been another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Peace out.
Later.